Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are watching us from a different time zone, good morning or good evening, wherever you may be. And for those who are seeing us for the first time, my name is Marilyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited, or CTS, Asia's most trusted training and business solutions partner. We create programs that adds value and impact for leaders to stay relevant, adapt to the next normal, and ensure performance of a hybrid team. And our mission is to inspire sustainable transformation by empowering leaders through customized learning solutions that drive outcomes and impact. We have served over 4,500 leaders, mostly on a workshop style, I would say, from over 30 countries in different industries, including Petronas, Sony Mobile, Ayala Group, Meralco, Aboitiz, Seda Hotels, Manila Hotel, to name a few. And today, it's my great pleasure to be able to meet one on one and have a conversation one on one with Miss Gina Romero. She's a Filipino British entrepreneur, community builder, and technology advocate. She is the founder and the head of special projects of Connected Women, a socially responsible AI and digital task outsourcing community that aims to improve the lives of Filipino women through meaningful online work. So, without so much further ado, I'd like to bring in Gina. Hi, Miss Gina.
Hi, Marilyn. Hi, everyone. Great to see you today.
Okay, that's great. Can you hear me well now?
I can hear you. I had to switch to a different a different setup, but I'm hoping that you're not getting an echo coming through.
No, I'm not getting an echo. I can hear you well, but hopefully you can hear me as well. Okay, so to get started, I mean, with the work that you have been doing for the last years, I doubt that my introduction is enough to justify the work that you have done, not only for the Filipino people, but for the women around the globe, I would say. So, in 2 to 3 minutes, please add on, introduce yourself, share the journey, particularly in this team around leadership transformation, like who you are, what your experience like, especially around this space.
2 to 3 minutes. Shall I start at my birth? Well, I think something relevant that I always introduce myself by saying is that I'm Filipina. I'm half Filipina, half British. So I grew up in the UK. And my mom was actually one of the pioneering OFWs, or overseas Filipino workers, who left her small town in Porac, Pampanga, to go
Oh,
and work in the UK. Yeah, so she comes from a very small town. And, you know, in those days, and even unfortunately today, a lot of women and men from the Philippines leave the country to look for opportunities overseas, right? So that was what my mom did. And so I grew up there. I grew up surrounded by Filipino communities, especially those who had left their kids behind. So I was one of the few kids, I think. Um, at that time, I would meet all these Filipino friends of my mom's, and they would say, I left my kid in the Philippines, and I didn't really understand why that was until I moved to Singapore. Uh, as a grown adult with my own children, and we had our own helper in our home who's also Filipino, and I just wondered, decades later, why this was still a problem. So the why behind Connected Women was really about coming back to the Philippines and leveraging technology to bring opportunities home for the women here.
wow, thank you for sharing that. And again, like I resonate to that reasons why you actually bring up or bring together the connected women, right? Because like I've still, I mean, I'm still in Singapore, and I see a lot of Filipinos or even foreigners who actually move abroad just to make money. And again, probably 20 years ago, it was raised by a friend of mine who's also based in the Philippines, a foreigner based in the Philippines. He said, like, I don't really understand it, but it happens. I mean, like, when when you wanted greener pastures, I guess, or when you cannot find opportunities in your own country, and that's what happens, right? So, anyway, so much for taking time to have this conversation with us, and also for sharing with us how actually connected women came about. And so I just wanted to find out more from you in terms of your leadership experience, style, and why you actually came up with empowering women as your priority and focus, I would say, right? So, who are actually your influencers? What are your favorite leadership styles that leads you to how you define what leadership is for you now? Um, Please feel free to share with us.
That's a good question. Well, I never wanted to be a leader, honestly. Like many leaders, I'm really a problem solver in my heart. Like, I'm curious. I love to learn, and I love to understand problems.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said about when I went to Singapore, I didn't really acknowledge, I guess, the challenge of forced migration until I got to Singapore. So,
Mm-hmm.
we touched a little bit on women leaving the country or going for greener pastures, or anyone leaving the country. But,
Mm-hmm.
there's a big difference between the exploration that you want to go and live and work abroad. And there's nothing like living and working abroad to expand your perspective and grow as a person, right? But I think when you have to leave your home and your family because you don't have a choice, then that is a very different scenario. And so for me, when I went to Singapore, my question was, but why is this still a problem? I don't understand. So I guess I start from that not understanding something, but wanting to understand. And then I move on into the sort of problem solving, experimental side of
Mm-hmm.
things. But leadership is never really something that I want to do. Um, but I think because I can be quite forward thinking, it puts me in a position where I am a leader, and so I have to embrace that sort of leadership role.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing with us. And again, like the best leaders actually um, comes out on you when you actually have problems to solve, and you wanted to step up, right, to solve some of these issues. As you've mentioned, leadership is basically what I'm getting from at least what you have shared is leadership is about problem solving and forward thinking, right? Because as a leader, we have to like think, how can we actually solve these problems for whether it's our clients or for other people around us, right? Or even like in your case, in the community that you have actually built through connected women. And I really love that you've mentioned around forward thinking, and that's part of solving problems, because without any solutions and without moving forward, nothing also happens, right? So I really appreciate you for that, for sharing that with us. So, but I also wanted to uh, ask from you, right? From your experience, like building this community, the connected women, and now actually you're working with corporate clients as well, right? So, what would you say would be the top problems that most leaders do face? I mean, before or even like after the pandemic, I would say.
Really good question as well. So, well, um, one of so where we come from at Connected Women, what we're trying to solve is the talent challenge, right?
Mhm.
Because we know that talent exists, and we know that jobs and work exists,
Mhm.
but often the challenge is connecting the two together, right? Finding the
Mhm.
best fit, the people with the right values, making sure that the culture fit is there. And for us at Connected Women, we also want to make sure that the aspirational fit is there,
Mhm.
right? Like, we want to match people to jobs that give them not just a means to earn, but also a future ahead of them, and
Mhm.
something that they feel aligned to. I think in Asia it's quite interesting because there's a lot of cultural um, pressure. So, in terms of what is acceptable as a job, as a profession, right? So I think in Asia there's a little bit of a different pressure that the Asians go through. And
Mhm.
so one of the things that I see very much as a talent leader, if you like, is that people are not focused on their aspirations. They're really focused on, like, I should become an accountant, a lawyer, or a CEO or whatever, because it's something that they've always believed that they should do. And the challenge with that is when you get shaken up in a crisis, like what happened in COVID, we start
Mm-hmm.
questioning our very existence, right? Because it starts crumbling. So I think, one of the big challenges that I see is as a leader in a very people focused, you know, space where we're really bringing communities into jobs, is helping people not just find what's a good fit for them culturally, but also to help them understand what their aspirations really are. Because, everyone talks about talent retention, right? Like the acquisition component, but then the retention is the difficult part. And I think it's hard to retain people when you're not aligned with their long-term aspirations, or if they don't even understand their
Mm-hmm.
long-term aspirations.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I would take that as the top problems. I mean, to summarize it, I would say how I actually understand it from you is you've mentioned about talent challenge, which could start from finding the best fit to like making sure that there's actually alignment in the values and aspiration. And I put the cultural pressure, especially in Asia, as a second problem, which actually boils down to summarize this to, as you mentioned, talent retention, right? Because again, this is also like it's interesting. Last night, my daughter actually invited me to watch a movie. And while you're saying about this cultural pressure that most people or most talents actually do some things because of money or other things rather than their aspiration, right? We've watched this movie called Elemental from Disney. And that's one of the lessons I've actually got from that movie, where like she there's a pressure between like, will my dad uh, like it if I don't want to continue his legacy or the business that he does? Because despite that, he feels that this is his aspiration, this is his dream, this is not mine, right? And so that also happens a lot with like people in general, right? Like
Yeah,
some people take, oh, nursing is good because that's one of the like easiest or like the paid, we can be paid well when we become a nurse and all those
yeah,
stuff, even though that's not actually our purpose, that's not actually our dream. So I really appreciate you sharing that part of the challenges that most talents do face as well, right?
yeah. And
So
actually, I realized I didn't add the third one. So
mhm,
just to add the third one, I think the third challenge is the skills, right? The upskilling, especially right now, because technology has always moved very, very fast. So there's a continuous need to upskill, or
mhm,
otherwise you have to keep rehiring people with a different skill set, right? So I think the upskilling and reskilling component is really important. And I think in particular from now, because of the artificial intelligence component,
sure.
uh, leaders are really under pressure to figure out how to um, help their workforce keep up with all of these changes, because that's another topic that is very top of mind for all leaders right now, right? How will AI and automation and technology disrupt my
Mhm,
industry, my future, and how
mhm.
will that in turn affect my workforce?
Exactly. And I really appreciate that you remember that, because generally leadership and transformation happens when we actually learn, when we upskill, when we reskill, when we continue to learn, right? And that's always my favorite topic, not only because that's what I do, but I mean, like, there's always like, when I saw training, I'm a hotelier by profession and training, but I mean, sorry, hospitality or hotel and restaurant management by profession and training. So, but when I saw training, and it really like provide shift of mindset, of skills, and I felt that it's such a gift to anyone, right? when you actually train or you upskill or reskill, right? And but again, there's still like a gap between like most companies providing that for their employees, right? And that's the reason why you actually made mention it's as one of the top problems when it comes to leadership challenges, right? So, but of course, we don't want to leave our audience with these problems. We'll do our best to somehow solve it or to share with them um, what are actually the important leadership skills and capabilities then that they must have in this next normal to continue to lead more effectively. And with the work that you do, how would you relate it to your own experience or story?
Well, I didn't come from a tech background. I have a really strange background, which I won't go into in detail. But in summary, I was a pig farmer. I was cabin crew. I went into tech because of my husband, and then I ended up in women's empowerment, and then now we're moving into the AI space. So I didn't have a solid tech background,
Mm-hmm.
but I keep evolving to whatever I need to learn to solve my next problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a specific challenge around technology upskilling
Mm-hmm.
because people are kind of afraid, right? Because it changes so fast and it's very hard to keep up with it. So I think where I've kind of like given myself a little bit of an edge in my career, or in my space, is that I haven't been afraid to learn about technology. Even if I knew nothing about it, my husband and I set up an IT company in the UK. And so I think I really want people to be less afraid of technology because in reality, it changes so fast that everyone is an expert and no one is an expert in the mainstream, right? Apart from technology leaders. So, that component is that component of upskilling is very important. And there's also some cultural and gender sways, I think, around technology because most women that I meet will shy away from anything tech because they'll say, I'm not a techie. Men
Mm-hmm.
do it as well, but I seem to see women doing it more. So that's an advantage when we move into a world that is increasingly technologically driven, right?
Yeah. So, are there anything more like aside from learning technology or upskilling? Are there any other skills or capabilities that you see that will be valuable in the future? I mean, some of the topics that we wanted to talk about here is how we can actually create those opportunities for women as well through technology, right? And for them to be able to like bridge that gap between those challenges that we have, that what else do they need to have aside from uh, being able to be more open about learning, right? So are there anything more that you'd like to add in terms of the skills that they may or even capabilities that they have to hone in order to be able to like keep up?
Yeah. Well, this is a big discussion right now, right? Like, what are the skills that we need as humans to
Mhm,
compete in a artificial intelligence led future?
mhm,
Um, and I mean, there are many, right? I mean, at the end of the day, social skills um, and compassion are
mhm,
human qualities that an artificial intelligence will never be able to replicate or not sincerely replicate. It might sound compassionate if it's been trained to have a compassionate voice, but in reality, it doesn't have compassion, right? Whereas a
mhm,
human does.
mhm,
I think trust, we as humans will trust humans in certain areas where we wouldn't trust technology, right? And there are circumstances where even irrationally we would rather talk to a human or be helped by a human than any kind of system, even if the system is more efficient maybe,
mhm,
and even if the system is faster. So if you think about customer service as one, right, like there's a point where it doesn't matter how good the resolution of an automated system is,
mhm,
have it being heard and being listened to and someone empathizing with you will actually still have more effect, right, on a customer's experience.
True.
And I really think that curiosity and problem solving will never really be solved, right, by automation. We still need to have a characteristic of questioning
Mm-hmm.
everything and trying to understand how things work. And of course, and this gets a little bit technical, but I just want to put it out there because it's a hot topic at the minute. You know, humans still have to manage and run technology, right? We still have to put the ethical guardrails in place and make sure that the technology that we build serves humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I really see a future that is very, in terms of leadership, right, in terms of skills, that is very human plus technology centered. So, yeah, I think definitely reading up and keeping very aware of the trends that are happening as technological advancements happen, and being very aware of what are the key traits and skills that companies will be looking for, or that we need to have as leaders, right, to be able to succeed in the future.
And
So
I
big.
really love, yeah, I really love how you have actually integrated it, because we have been hearing AI, artificial intelligence, a lot, technology changes and all those stuff, which we are actually facing on a faster phase, I would say, in the last years. Although it's AI is not really new, right? It's been here since the 1950s, right? And yet, like, it's making a buzz in the last years for us as well, although it's been here and it has been improving a lot of lives through automations from different industries as well. But I really appreciate how you integrated and how you highlighted that despite that we have this AI, we have this technology, we always have to make ourselves different as human by learning how to have that social skills, compassion, building trust, and of course that requires in building relationships, right? And giving that experience to the customers, as you've mentioned, around customer service and solving problems, right? Because despite that we have all these technology processes and systems and technology that can help us to be able to build all of this, but without the input from human and without us being, because again, like, there are also weaknesses, I would say, right, from AI. They don't have emotions in in the first place. Which is like what makes us different as human and what makes us powerful. And again, like, as most AI or technology is, the input has to come from us as well. Right.
Absolutely. And you know, and the ethical component is very important. This is another hot topic, right?
Hmm.
AI is really just using data. So whatever data we put into that system is what it's going to base its sort of decisions on, right?
Exactly.
And most of human data is flawed because it's missing, you know, it's missing important parts like gender data, for example. There's lots of missing gender data. So um, it's, you know, these areas like diversity and inclusion and making sure that this translates into systems and processes and companies that we build is very important. I think ethics is an area that humans will always have to lead, right?
Exactly. And that's actually very interesting. When I took this certification course on AI, it's like, oh, that's very interesting, because they talk about ethics, which you just mentioned. They talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I said, like, oh, okay, because it all matters with AI, because as you've said, everything about AI to make it most effective or efficient for our use, we have to have, or we have to give the right data, the right input. It's garbage in, garbage out, generally, right?
Exactly.
So, so that's what makes it very interesting as well. And before I ask you the final question I have for you, which is a very open question, and I'm curious to know what you're gonna say or answer on this question, which I would normally say Miss Universe questions. um, Before that, I would like to invite people who are actually joining us live to give your comments, ask your questions if there's any. And for those who are watching us on replay, I'll be tagging Miss Gina on this interview. So I'm sure she'll be glad to answer some of your additional questions with regards to whether it's connected women leadership, the advocacies that she has been doing, and how is she leveraging in AI and technology with the work that she does right now. Yeah. So the last question or final question I would say would be, if you have a magic wand and can use it, what will you do with it?
This is the type of thing that we talk about over dinner with my kids, because or superpowers, and all of these things. So let me give you my actual answer first, like my professional version. So, well, Connected Women has been through several iterations, right? As I was telling you earlier before we started the live, we're actually 10 years old this year as a brand.
Mhm.
Um, and most people don't realize that, but I actually launched in Singapore back in 2010 and 2013. And when I launched it there, it was really just to encourage women to use technology. That was it. Like, I was using technology. I realized that it was very much helpful to me in my aspirations, my career, and everything else. And I just wanted more women to embrace tech. But we were focused more on professional women, business women. And then after the realization that we really need to help the more disadvantaged women, when I came back to the Philippines, the initial plan was to build a job matching platform.
Mhm.
So that was fine, right? Like, we wanted to match people. But again, we realized that we were still not helping the women that we really wanted to help, which were the ones who needed more help, right?
Mhm.
And then the third stage, which is where we're at now, which happened during COVID, is the pivot to the AI training. So we upskill women from the grassroots. We give them a chance to participate in the artificial intelligence industry through Connected Women's projects. Imagine how much time I've spent in my life to learn these, lessons, and have to keep iterating. So I think, if I could have a magic wand, like, I wish there was a shortcut to the problem solving process. Uh, I'm very impatient, like, I just want to solve the problem. But I guess part of the process is going through the failures, right? The challenges, and that helps you really understand what you're trying to do. It helps you hone the problem and then discover the solution. But honestly, there's so many people that need help, right? Like, our mission is to create socially responsible jobs.
Mhm.
It's just so frustratingly slow, I feel. We have 130,000 women in the community. We've trained
Wow.
1,000 women in artificial intelligence skills. So it's not slow, really. When I look at it and I tell myself, like, you know, be rational. It's not slow. You're doing well. Just carry on. But it's frustrating. So yeah, I wish I could, like, magic the solution quicker so that we could help more people and, you know, get to the answer.
I would actually probably wish the same.
Right.
Sometimes when you wanted to do things done, we tend to be quite impatient about that. But what's interesting is that, everything like what you've mentioned also has a process, right? So we have to like live with it somehow.
Totally.
But yeah, I mean, like with the work that you have been doing, imagine leveraging on AI for the last 10 years through Connected Women, helping more women to embrace technology, to actually even give them like opportunities to be able to work or even work from home with what
Exactly.
they can and what they w- with the training that you provide as well. And actually I said that this was the last question, but I guess I felt that I missed to ask you something. So I lied. So I'm
Okay.
just curious to know, because in some of the pointers that we've shared for this interview, we said that we're also gonna answer the challenges that the women normally face in balancing family commitment with career, and what strategies that can they use to thrive, right? So I felt that, oh, I don't think we have answered this enough in the
That's true.
conversation, and this is a very good conversation, and because these are about strategies, and this could help our audience who will be watching us later on as well, on what can they use or do to be able to thrive, in order to balance that, right? Because that's always the problem, for especially for women or for family people, right?
Yeah. Well, there's two kind of like two ways to answer this question. I guess one is the more sort of conceptual, I guess, answer, which is very much about what we do at Connected Women, right? I mean, we recognized 10 years ago that flexible remote work is much more women friendly than
Mm-hmm.
traditional work. And that's why we've been advocating for technology. It's not really just so that you can use technology for the sake of it, but it's really because technology allows us to have more flexibility in where we work, how we work, improves our efficiencies and everything else. And this is really important to women when we have so many things, right?
Mm-hmm. True.
In fact, we know that the majority of unpaid care work in the home still falls to women globally,
Mhm.
despite the fact that women are starting careers and growing careers, right? So I think, we really need to, in the future and as soon as possible, solve the unpaid care burden so that we have more inclusive home lives that where men are able to participate better. And that's a
Mhm.
whole nother topic, so I won't even go there. But there are so many reasons why this happens to fall to women, right? Um, so, so as employers and leaders, I really encourage you to look at flexible and remote work. And there's really no excuse now because we've already dealt with it during the pandemic. Pre-pandemic, people said, I don't even know how. But post-pandemic, there's an option, right? We can do more to help women stay in the workforce. And for women, push back as well and look for jobs that allow you the flexibility that you need
Mhm.
to have both your family life, which you're more than entitled to, and your career, right, which you deserve to have if you want to have it without compromising your sanity and your health. um, on a very practical side, I've spent a lot of time learning my own lessons about time management, because time management is a skill that is just as important as financial management, right, if not more important, because you can never get more time and you can always find more money if you manage your time well and you're smart. So, really study your time management practices and build frameworks around your life that allow you to manage your time in a way that helps serve you and helps you meet your goals and your aspirations.
Wow, thank you so much for those strategies that you have shared with us. And let me just flash it to them. And again, for companies, we are encouraging them to leverage not only on technology, but the providing flexible remote work for others, right? And for women on the practical side, that as what you mentioned, is really more of time management. And it's important to know, right, that like, okay, money we can earn it back, but time we can't do that. So it's really about leveraging on whatever time we have, and like making the most use of it as well. So thank you so much for those wonderful strategies. And before we end this conversation, is there anything more that you'd like to leave our audience with? A final message, perhaps?
Well, I think I said enough, but I'd love to connect with anyone who has follow-up questions or wants to connect or talk about anything. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn, and of course, join Connected Women so that you can follow us and find out about upcoming events and programs.
Thank you so much for that, Miss Gina. Again, thank you for your time. I know you're a busy person. And please share with the comments as well on LinkedIn, Facebook, on how can they actually connect with you, or can they join the community of connected women. So thank you so much for this very inspiring conversation, insightful as well. So thank you for your time. And for those who are watching us, whether on live or replay, thank you so much for joining us. And let's all create this opportunity through these interventions to create a better world to live in, because we can, right? So remember that even the richest investor in the world would say that investing in yourself is the best investment you can ever make in your life. So, with that, we would like to leave you with this quote that if your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you so much, Miss Gina, for being an excellent leader for us and always, and for
Thank you.
everyone else. Thank you and have a good day, everyone. Stay safe. Bye for now and see you next week.